One of the things that I thought was really interesting in what you were saying was this notion of dynamic temporal resolution.
It occurred to me that by shooting at 120 frames, you can down convert to any frame rate. That in fact it would be possible to embed one frame rate inside of another, which we do in the Ufotog film.
One screen that's overlapping on the other.
That's a simple way to do it. I'm just saying you could have a movie with one character at 120 frames and one character at 24. And the audience is they're not going to be conscious of why that one, or the monster is 120 frames and the people are 24, yeah, exactly. Something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You can do that now. That's very easy to do. People don't generally get their head around the idea that you could have a black and white movie with a color character. That's been done very effectively.
Indeed.
You could have a 2D movie with a 3D monster.
Yes.
You could have a movie that's 24 frames with a 120 frame monster, or anything that you want to do is now feasible because digital processes allow you to do virtually anything you can imagine. This was not true in the days of 2001 or Blade Runner or anything of that. That was photochemically, that was never going to happen. So now I'm just saying, let's just back up a little bit, embrace the fact that we're in the digital age, and do what's appropriate for that takes advantage of what's already there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not going to be costly. It means you, as the filmmaker, have got to be ingenious. And I think that's where the fun is. That's where everybody's going to be able to experiment and come up with wacky ideas of what to do with it. So I think dynamically changing frame rates, color density, color saturation, screen size, all kinds of things are fun added attributes to the palette that a filmmaker has. Brainstorm, I went from small to big. I went from 1.66 to 2.35. And from 35 to 70 millimeter,
yeah.
And from mono sound to stereo sound. That was all I could do at the time because I couldn't do show scan. But any of those things are possible.
And indeed, more and more done. I mean, the aspect ratio itself is really being questioned now by all sorts of filmmakers who are either changing it during the film or offering
right.
a one-to-one
and surprisingly, ratio. Yes, because like Chris Nolan is putting more IMAX material into Interstellar in the same way he did with Dark Knight Rises. So you're in this IMAX theater, and it's basically 17:9 is the cinema standard. But because it's an IMAX theater, it can suddenly go to 4:3, and suddenly the height of the picture changes profoundly for a sequence. And the people love it. No one would have ever imagined that was possible until Chris Nolan said, yeah, we're going to do it. And you're going to like it, and it's true.
And the other interesting thing is this kind of dynamic allocation of bandwidth, where I might give more to color space at this point, or more to temporal resolution at the other point in the film.
Let's say you have a 4K projector at your theater. That's truly 4K. It's not a Bayer filter 4K. It's truly 4K. But if you shot 4K with a Bayer filter, it's really not 4K. It's 3.5K or 3K or whatever. So it makes sense to oversample your photography to 5K or 6K or something, so that by the time it arrives at the theater, it's using 100% of what that projector can deliver. Because you're paying for the projector. You're paying for the projector, you're paying for the light, you're paying for the resolution, you pay for the lens, you pay for the screen. So you might as well use it.
When you think of 120 FPS, the first thing that comes to mind is motion, right? Yet at the same time you were saying there's something about this close-up at 120.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about it?
To me, it looks like that guy is in the room with me, and he's talking to me. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
I was profoundly blown away when I saw that happen. And that whole movie was based upon a test that we shot previously with a friend of mine. I just shot a close-up for fun to see what would happen. And I thought, oh my God, there's this new phenomena, which is about eye contact between people, relationships. And so instead of the relationship of the audience to the movie being one of being a third-person, non-participating voyeur, observing other people look at each other, we changed the paradigm, and suddenly that person is looking directly at each audience member in a very personal way. And that was what Stanley Kubrick was striving to do. This first-person kind of experiential thing, which embraces the presence of the audience and takes the audience on the adventure directly, not voyeuristically, but directly. Now that we've got this Magi thing with its incredibly vivid realism, As a filmmaker, I'm just fascinated to explore, well, what do you do with that? What's it going to be like when an actress of my choice is 2 feet away from my face and talking to me? Or a singer of my choice is 2 feet away from my face and singing to me. Not singing to other people, singing to me. And I'm just fascinated to explore what we can do with that as a completely, and it's like inventing holograms or an alternate reality or an out-of-body experience or something that's profoundly real, that your nervous system says that's real. I think it's a whole new art form, potentially. But it requires everything. Big screen, high brightness, certain focal length lenses too I haven't talked about at all. I measure my theater. I go into the theater with a camera and say, what camera will exactly restore the perspective that I see if I'm in this seat looking at this screen? Mid, left to right, mid, front to back, the average seat.
Okay.
I say, I want to know what my screen is going to be, and I'm going to shoot to match that. Because there's all kinds of other perspective cues and convergence lines and things that have to do with depth perception that I want to make as comfortable for the audience as I possibly can. It's one of the attributes of the Magi thing and the Ufotog movie is that everybody reports that there's no struggle to perceive the stereo space. I never changed the focal length of the lens.
What is the focal length?
20.
20 millimeter.
Super 35 sensor and 20 millimeter. I don't like to go longer lenses, because longer lenses create a kind of a cutout, cookie cutter kind of 3D that looks false to me. I'm only saying that if you're going to see a 60-degree wide picture in the theater, photograph a 60-degree wide picture in the camera, and it'll be naturally comfortable to watch. It'll be a one-to-one to the real world. I want to know what the projector is going to do in the theater. The problem is that theaters are all different.
Yeah.
And so people change focal length lenses all the time like they would conventionally in 2D. And I say, I don't think so. I think you should be don't go to long lenses in 3D. It won't look right. Move the camera in closer. Don't use a zoom and stick with the focal length that's most natural for most theaters. I mean, I've decided I'm ready to actually get back on the stage and shoot movies and direct movies and write scripts and things like that, as long as the medium can hold up to my spectacle vision, my kind of Kubrickian oeuvre that hasn't anything to do with normal melodrama. I'm bored to death with conventional movies because that's what everybody else does. Excuse me a second.
You're saying for big spectacle movies, the 120 and so on, and yet I'm kind of interested in a Bergman movie with faces like Persona or something like that.
Right.
And that's why I was struck by what you were saying about the close-up, is that because there is something about the presence that is really special and really, really magical.
I find it hard to find a language to describe what I'm trying to do, because there is a potential tremendous intimacy and simplicity to it that I'm thinking a lot about because of those close-ups and how it makes me feel. And because I've been thinking about another a form where an actor or actress might be just looking at you and you hear what they're thinking. I like expanding that. You talk about Bergman and those kind of things. I love the idea that as you expand the power of the medium, you tremendously expand the potential to tell stories in different ways. I call it not just storytelling, it's experience making. And we all live by what experiences we have in real life. We may remember movies and television shows, but if a car crashes down the street, you're going to remember that forever, because it's reality. So the closer we get to reality, the more profoundly and clearly we're going to remember that particular thing.
I think we need both, though, don't we?
Of course we do.
Like you were saying, sometimes I
think they're all wonderful.
You want to have that proscenium 24 FPS thing, but the 120 is definitely enlarging that palette. It's so wonderful. So are you going to make another short or?
No, I want to make a feature.
Okay.
I have a screenplay that I'm working on that I'm eager to make. If I can get back on the track and make a movie in my little studio, that's what I would like to do.
What's the title?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. What's the genre, can I ask? Or is that?
It's science fiction, 100 years in the future, space opera.
Space opera sounds cool. Sounds great. Thank you so much. Anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
All right, I'm ready for Tail Slate.
Okay. Tail Slate.
Yeah, I know.